Hello everyone, how you doing? Now Sony just had their pre-TGS conference in Japan. This is their pre-TGS conference. It's not their actual TGS conference, but they actually announced a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff I actually did not see coming, and obviously we got to talk about it. Now, me being the Sony/PlayStation guy, I did not expect this much stuff to come out of this show, especially since this is a pre-event. This is not Sony's actual TGS conference, and we originally only thought PS4 was going to get an announcement release date for Japan, which they did do. The PS4 is now going to be released February 22nd in Japan, which is odd considering the fact that, PlayStation is always released first in Japan. PS1, PS2, PS3 have all come out in Japan first, and that has been their prioritized nation. But it would obviously make sense this time considering the fact that, throughout all of PS4's announcements, details, release dates, and all that, we only knew about American stuff and Western stuff and even more Europe information. And the reason why PS4 is coming out so late in Japan is because they, and what Sony is telling us, which would also add up, is that they want to, have more Japanese-themed releases to go alongside the PS4 once it comes out over there. And that would make sense. They want Japanese market games ready for Japan. So this time around, the West is going to see the PS4 first, November 15th for North America and November 29th for Europe. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about all the promotional material that was shown there, things like videos showing off PS4 and Vita and all that. Things we already know, but they did show Capcom's Deep Down. You remember Deep Down? Last time we saw that was back, February 20th when they originally revealed the PlayStation 4. Well, we actually saw more of that. They actually showed gameplay this time around. Game's looking good. It was also, revealed that Sony Computer Entertainment is helping Capcom develop the game, which, at least in my eyes, would confirm for sure that the game is exclusive. Originally, we didn't know that just yet. Capcom wasn't saying anything, which would certainly hint at it, but I think that pretty much confirms it now that the game is exclusive, and they showed gameplay. It's looking good. I want to see more gameplay for Deep Down. I want to see more of this game. The game certainly piqued my interest back when we saw it in February, and it's cool that we're seeing more of it. Some interesting facts about the game is that the game is set in New York, and it's set in the year 2094, which is certainly interesting. Of course, we've already heard this before, but that it's an online-centric game, and that things like monsters and items in the game are actually going to be spawned automatically. One thing to note about Deep Down, even from the conference, is that this game still looks pretty early in development, and if you remember originally, Deep Down is just a working title for this game, and at the conference it was even noted that they can't show specific parts of it just yet because it's just too early on, but it does look interesting. They showed a multiplayer match of 3 separate players fighting that dragon, and this was all, supposedly gameplay, and it is looking very interesting. I certainly want to see more of Deep Down. Now, one big part of the conference is that there was a lot of games announced. Phantasy Star Nova is coming to PS Vita. This is an offline Phantasy Star game. And then Yakuza Ishin was announced for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. That would make sense for Japan, obviously. This is going to be day and date with the PS4's release date in Japan. And then Soul Sacrifice Delta was announced for the PlayStation Vita. Now, from what we're hearing right now, this is not Soul Sacrifice 2, but it is a different game. But we don't have any details right now, so we're going to have to wait a little bit longer on that one. A new strategy RPG was announced for PS3, PS4, and Vita called Natural Doctrine. That's coming. And then more games were announced, like Guilty Gear is coming to PS3 and PS4. We kind of already knew that game was announced, but now we know the platforms it's coming for. Lily Bergamo was announced. That's coming to PS4, I believe. Wonderflick, a title that was originally only on iOS, is also coming to PS3, PS4, and Vita. And a few other games that weren't talked about much because they really didn't have much to show, but things like a new Mobile Suit Gundam and Dynasty Warriors 8 is also coming to the PS4. I'm probably missing a game announcement in there somewhere, but I'm still kind of waking up from after watching this conference. But now we're going to get into the bulk of the show. Some of the more interesting announcements that came out. One is that there was a 64 gigabyte memory card coming to the PlayStation Vita. Now, this is only announced for Japan, but this is a huge increase from the previous large capacity, which is 32 gigabytes, and it's going to retail for close to 10,000 yen, which is roughly $100. It was also announced at the conference that all the PS Vita memory cards are getting a price drop down there, which would certainly make sense. And 64 gigs, that's a lot. As of right now, people are wanting a bigger memory card. Some people are saying that 32 gigabytes is too small for them. So 64 is obviously a pretty nice big increase. And even though it's only announced for Japan right now, that I'm more than certain that will come to North America, Europe, and all that at some point. So that's good. Hopefully it'll only cost around $100, much like Japan. It's still a lot of money, and it's insanely overpriced, but at least, give the option out there, Now we're getting into part 1 of the crazy announcements. A new PlayStation Vita model has been announced. A full-on new redesigned PS Vita. It's thinner, it's lighter, and it's got a whole bunch of new colors. It's completely new. This is apparently supposed to be a more casual and easier to use model of the PlayStation Vita. It's 20% thinner, 15% lighter, and it's actually ditching the OLED screen for an LCD one. The screen size is staying at 5 inches, but they are in fact ditching OLED for an LCD screen. The battery life has also been increased by about 1 hour, and the system actually has onboard memory, but it only has 1 gigabyte. This new PS Vita will be available only in Japan right now, October 10th, in 6 different colors. One's white, one's black and red, one's white and yellow, I think. Very interesting colors. And it will retail for about 19,000 yen, which is roughly $190 here. So, very interesting. Did not really see that coming. Did not see that coming. I did not. At least not for their pre-TGS show. Now, all around, this new model pretty much does have improvements. You know, an hour of battery life. It's thinner, it's lighter, you know, it has a gig of onboard memory. My only concern for this new PS Vita model is that, well, it is dropping OLED for an LCD screen, and OLED is very, very nice. The color reproduction is great on a screen like that, so I really hope that the LCD doesn't, it's not a drastic drop in quality. You know, I hope there's nice backlighting. I just hope the screen looks, good. Obviously, it does help in the battery performance, and I'm sure it does bring costs down for the system. This is actually, they're pretty unclear if they're bringing this to the US. I would assume it would come to the US at some point, but Sony's actually not announcing whether or not this is actually replacing the current PS Vita model, or if it's just supposed to coexist alongside the current model. My guess right now, and what I'm more inclined to believe, since Sony isn't saying anything as of recording this right now, is that this new model will live alongside the old model. So you've got sort of an entry point, a cheaper model to buy into if you want to buy that, and then there's the, other PS Vita model that has a beautiful OLED screen that you can buy into. However, there's also some evidence suggesting that this new model takes over the original model, one being that the model number is called PCH 2000, 2000 being, a larger number. Like, that's sort of how the PSP sort of worked, PSP 1000, 2000, 3000, each model taking over the previous one. So there's, that, for example. One thing being that the new model actually uses micro USB to charge this time, instead of Sony's proprietary system. So maybe they could be ditching that, and this is why that there's, they introduced this new model. So it's cheaper, it's more affordable, it's the new model number, and it actually uses something that we're all accustomed to, which is micro USB. And as I've said before, it's coming out October 10th in Japan, and no word on a Western release for US or Europe or anything like that. Now, will it come to the US and Europe and all that? I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I can see them bringing it over, I can see them not bringing it over. Sometimes they keep stuff in Japan, sometimes they actually do bring it over after a couple months. I don't know. Now, easily the most interesting thing that Sony actually announced at this conference was the PlayStation Vita TV, PS Vita TV. It's this little box that connects to your TV so you can play PS Vita games. And that is absolutely right. It's a 6x10 centimeter box, connects to your TV so you can play PlayStation Vita games. You don't need a PS Vita, you don't need a PS3, a PS4. This is the PS Vita hardware. This is a PlayStation Vita in a little box. You connect it to your TV, and you use a DualShock 3, and you actually play PS Vita. The OS is on there and everything. This is a PlayStation Vita in the box for $100. That's what it's retailing for in Japan, around that price range, and that's exactly what it is. This is basically a set-top box. Think like the Apple TV or the Roku box, or even something like the Ouya, that little $100 Android console. This is a $100 PlayStation Vita that connects to your TV, and you can play PlayStation Vita games through a DualShock 3. So when you're using the DualShock 3, you're controlling the PS Vita's home screen on the television. This little box has a slot for memory cards, that has a slot for PS Vita cards, and you can play these games on your TV. And it supports everything like the PS Vita OS supports. You can play PS1 games, you can play all the downloaded PS Vita games that you have, you can even play PSP games. This is the PS Vita hardware. This is exactly what it is. Now, this idea is incredibly interesting. I mean, it's actually a pretty good idea. It's $100 for a PlayStation Vita set-top box. That's exactly what it is, because you can also use Netflix, Hulu. There's actually a bunch of partnerships that Sony announced for, like, Japan-oriented places. Obviously, this box is only announced for Japan currently. It is coming to Japan. It was also confirmed that through a later firmware update, this little box is going to be able to do remote play with the PS4. And you're thinking, well, why would I need to remote play the PS Vita TV to PS4? If you have a PS4 connected to a TV, just play your PS4 to a TV. Well, this box is so small and portable, you could, for example, take the PS Vita box to a separate house or a separate room and remote play your PS4 to that TV or that specific location to your television. So you also basically have a portable PlayStation 4 that is still being connected to a TV. So yes, if you have an actual regular PS Vita, you can remote play PS4 games to your, handheld wherever you may be. But say, for example, you don't want to play on your handheld. If you have a PS Vita box, you basically have a sort of card to access your PS4 from another TV. If you see what I'm saying, it's kind of confusing, but this little box will be able to remote play PS4 from another TV from wherever your PS4 might be. And then that's pretty much it. Now, here's some of the interesting things about this little box. Some Vita games are not supported. Why are they not supported? Well, the Vita has a touchscreen. It has a back touchpad. And this device is obviously not going to be able to mimic that because you're going to be using a DualShock 3 to control this thing, which is interesting that they're not using a DualShock 4. I would assume that's going to be supported at a later date, but the DualShock 4 has a front touchpad, so that would certainly make up for some support of Vita games. But for example, Little Deviants uses the back touchpad. That game, I would assume, is nowhere near close to being supported for this set-top box, because that's exactly, can't do it. And even then, the DualShock 4 wouldn't kind of remedy that situation because, well, I guess it could, but if a game, for example, uses the front touch and the back touch, I would think that'd be really hard to kind of get that support rolled out for that system. Now, for the most part, the system is getting mixed response from the community and journalists. Some kind of like the idea, some kind of hate the idea, what is the point of that thing? I like the idea. It's $100. That's very, very easy to, that's a very low entry point for anybody. Basically, $100 means you can start playing PS Vita games right now on your television if you wanted to do so. And look, for example, say you're in the market for a set-top box. You're like, oh, maybe I'll get an Apple TV or a Roku box to watch Hulu, Netflix, all that. Why the hell would you get those things now if you can get this thing? Something that plays PS1 games, PSP games, PS Vita games. That would be a no-brainer situation because it's, the same price as those boxes, but now you're getting PlayStation titles. You're getting legacy PlayStation titles playable on your television. My only real issue with the PlayStation Vita TV is that it creates market confusion. I'm sure even some people watching this now are kind of possibly confused about it. From what I've read so far, there is a fair amount of confusion with this device. Now, for the most part, gamers are going to know about it. We're the kind of people that are invested into this industry and read up on these things. But I feel like this is going to create a little bit of consumer confusion in terms of looking at PS Vita and then PS Vita TV. One's $200, one's $100, and it kind of creates that confusion. And then it kind of makes more confusion, when you bring remote play into the situation, and one box plays PS1, PSP games on your TV, but it can't play certain PS Vita games, but your PS Vita can play PS Vita games, and the PS Vita is still sort of a situation where it's so what can I play on that? What can I not play on this? I feel like that's unnecessary market confusion for Sony that's Sony's creating for itself. The PS Vita TV will be coming out November 14th in Japan. $100 for just the box, $150 with a DualShock 3 and an 8GB memory card. No word on the US. I would assume this is not going to come to the US. That's just my guess right out of nowhere, though. I doubt it would come to the US. That just seems like something that wouldn't make its way over here, over to the West. But if it does, I wouldn't be completely surprised, but this just seems like something I would definitely not in any way, shape, or form assume that would come to the US. But it could, and if it does, I wouldn't be surprised. And that pretty much wraps up Sony's pre-TGS conference. Again, didn't think the conference was going to be this big. I did not in any way, shape, or form think that this much stuff was going to get announced at this show. But we still got TGS to look forward to, and that's where a large bulk of Sony announcements are going to come, possibly new PS4 games. Looks like we got a good amount of PS Vita stuff here, so who knows how much PS Vita support's going to be at TGS. Presumably a lot. They're going to have a lot of games on the show floor. That's definitely been confirmed. But I hope you all enjoyed my little wrap-up video. Please let me know what you think of the new PS Vita models, PS Vita TV, and all that stuff. And I'll see you Friday for Let's Talk PlayStation.